Our goal tonight is to answer whatever questions you have. I'm Mike Lawrence. This is the managing partner of Colonial Jackson LLC. His name is
This is gentleman y'all won't remember what you said.
This is my friend Bob. You got me. Bo Locker. And Bo is the managing partner and my boss, so if you see him about to hit me, let me know. But we're excited that you're here. There's been a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. There's been a lot of stuff going out about the plans for this project. And what I'd like to do is answer as many of those questions as you have, and then let you ask me new ones, and I'll seek to answer those as well, except for the hard ones. I'm going to give those to Bo.
What I would like to hear you, what you plan to do exactly, because
I'm going to tell you every bit of that.
okay, because we got another
Or
letter.
just me and you can have a talk.
I got a letter from the city on for the 28th.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you did. Actually, I sent those out. As a requirement of what we're doing, we have to announce to you on several different times the process that we're going through. And those are all easy to do because those are established by the city. They're backed up by the state and the county, but they are rules. So we have to follow those rules, as we do all the rest of them as well. We have a team here that work with us. Everyone reports to our managing director here. But we consist of a group of professionals that all have separate skills that we do for projects like this. It's a very exciting thing. How this project came to be, best I can find out from the information that I found, was that this golf course was built in the 40s. And then this building that we're all in was built in the early 60s. And the golf course operated as a golf course for a long time. This building is amazing. About half the people I've met in my 3 months here have had some direct connection to this building. They either came to a wedding here, they came to a prom here, some people had bar mitzvahs here, all kinds of events in this building. So it makes it a very exciting historical place. A place that we hope will continue for many years. Colonial Country Club had a bank note. And eventually it came to pass that the bank took possession of the property. It's 152 acres, 145 acres, including this building and the golf course, and a little over 7 acres that is the driving range. And Bo's company is now the proud owner of Colonial Country Club through the company that he also owns called Colonial Jackson LLC. The first thing you do when you gain a piece of property is you decide what you think you want to do with it. And there is the first process you do is you go through zoning change. Because without zoning, you can't do anything. This property has a very unique zoning, and this property was actually created before there were zoning. And if you come to me right now and you say, Mike, I want to buy the whole thing and I want to build my house out here in the middle by the lake, you can't do that. It's not zoned for that. It's zoned for a golf course. Now the fact is that economically the golf course was not viable for many years before the time that the bank decided to call it up. And so for it to go back as a golf course is folly. There's a lot of things that it's very expensive to put it back as a golf course. And so that was never in the plans of the bank or any of the people that they talked to, actually. But think about that. The golf course has been here since the 40s. It was taken over by the bank. The bank put it up for sale. Nobody in the local market really worked hard to try and buy it. If they did, they would have already bought it. When the time came and the price was set, Bo bought the deal. And that's why we're here. One of the things that everybody's asked me has been, what are you going to do with the property? Just like this gentleman did. And to tell you the blunt, honest truth, we don't know yet. Now, as a planner and developer myself, one of the first things I did was, well, what can we do with it? And this is an idea that was created back in, what, those, August, September? We created this idea and land uses to figure out what would be the best use of the property. And so then, once we decided what we thought would be the best use of the property, we then had to figure out how best to meet the goals, the rules of the city, the county, and the state. First thing we were told to do is to rezone it to something where we could do what we thought was pertinent to the property. You look through the zoning regulations, and there are many, boils down to three. The zoning calculation, the zoning categorization we chose is community mixed use. There are things that are allowed in community mixed use, there are things that are precluded in community mixed use. But because we didn't have a dead solid, this is what we're going to do, we chose the one that allowed us to have options.
Sir, I'm hard of hearing, probably some in the back are also, could you speak up just a bit?
That's never a problem for me.
All right. Okay.
I've been trying to tone that down a little bit.
No, go ahead.
Anyway, so we came up with this plan. You have any comments at this point?
Fire away, you're doing great.
Okay. Can everybody see this?
The same way, yeah.
It's dark.
No, we didn't have
Tripod up on top of that
Put it
table.
on top of it.
Pull the
If
table.
we want to, we can, I'll tell you, there'll be a chance for everybody to come peruse it and review and actually.
What we're going to do here in a couple of minutes is let you
Oh,
answer.
first, that was, where is that? That was the Old Canton Road and all that.
Yes. Here you go. I don't know. Okay. This is Club View. This is Old Canton Road out here. And this is the road that comes up toward the clubhouse. Parkway. And it comes up to here. We're trying to make easy access without disturbing the property as much as we can. This would be the main entrance into the back of the property. Okay? There's already a light at Oak Canton, as you all know, so it will govern how many cars are let through there. We come here and then we come up into the property. This is the driving range. It's the only part of the property, only part of the project that touches Oak Canton Road. So that's the only part where the 24,000 cars a day that go down Oak Canton Road that they can see. So that makes logical sense for that to be the commercial area. Now, what does commercial area mean? The zoning regulations tell you what they can do in there. You can put a lot of things in there, but there are a lot of things you can't put in there. Some of the concerns that I've had, or that I've heard, is people saying that they're concerned about the type of businesses that could be there.
What kind of zoning you have in the red area? You see what?
This area right here,
Yes.
I don't have zoning in there yet. That's what we're seeking to get. What we're trying to get is community mixed use, which allows a bunch of things. It doesn't allow a lot of other things. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. I understand the Colonial LLC, but are you guys the owner and you're going to stay owners, or are you selling pieces out to someone else to develop?
That's a great question, and if that is not presently determined, we are owners and developers. However, if groups come in and want particular development aspects of the property, and their covenants or their program is to develop the property themselves, then yes, we would have the option to sell them the property.
But are you at this point planning on developing yourself or planning on selling?
My hopes for that are to plan to develop, but somewhat crystal ball in the future as far as exactly zoning. I can't stick that in stone today, if we would own the entire piece, or if we would have pieces per se, or if we would sell portions and parcels off. We have talked to a lot of local developers, from single family to different commercial developers that have quite a bit of interest and have sent their intentions to us. But as we've said, we wanted to include you guys, let people know what we're thinking, big picture, and then go through the proper zoning process, the public hearing, and get that feedback. Figure out.
Would you prefer to do it yourself?
I would prefer, yes. I would prefer. But Nancy,
Let me show you what the different pieces are, because I think that's going to answer your question a little bit as well. But it is our, we would like to develop. But things, I'm sorry?
I said, I think financing will dictate.
Yeah, that dictates.
that's a lot of
What I tried to do in creating a plan here, what we've all worked on so diligently, is creating a cohesive plan that matches who lives next door to each other. Okay? This is the commercial area right here. I put this space in here in case it needs to grow, in case they need a little more room. That doesn't mean there's going to be commercial here. It might, if there's a need for it. Don't forget that the defining factor, like she said about financing, the defining factor of what we want to sell is who's going to buy it. If there's no market for this as commercial, then bang, we're going to change it to something else. Yeah? Yes, ma'am?
I don't want to slow the process down, but is it true to say that when you go for zoning, once it's zoned, whatever it's zoned, is for the entire parcel, and whatever you want to do can be done anywhere later? If the zoning's going to rule what can be done with the property, correct?
The zoning will rule what can be done with the property.
And so,
Okay, now
whether
in the
you own it
mixed
or
use-
anyone owns it, it's up to the zoning what can be done there. Commercial could be on the back side as easy on the front side.
Not necessarily. No.
Okay, that was my
No.
question.
This is Oak Kent Road here. 24,000 cars a day travel on Oak Kent Road now. 9,000 come up here along Colonial after it turns, up here at the red light. Once it gets on there, it comes here. There's 9,000 cars a day on this road. The county takes into account traffic counts and every other aspect of it. Where is the water and sewer? Where can they provide the services that we all need? And they take all those things into account in their decision to zone it this way or that way. But traffic is a big part of it. Utilities is a big part of it. If I said I wanted to put the commercial back here, I'm moving it off of a 24,000 car a day road designed to be that big, got that number of lanes, got that number of stoplights, everything, and putting it on a 9,000. It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't work. Because in order to make Atkins as big as this, I have to go all the way back to the freeway. They'd never allow that. It just wouldn't allow it. So the zoning we picked out of the three options is a mixed use that allows certain things. If you were to say, what is this going to be? Predominantly, it's going to be a residential development. Because you can see all of the green is various types of residential development. This part around the school, that's up in the air. We don't actually know what that's going to be right now. It has a lot of great uses that we can think of, but we don't rightly know today what it could be. Yes, ma'am?
Did you say that's the school?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There is schools that have talked to us about that.
Yeah, but isn't that where the clubhouse
That's the
is?
clubhouse and everything. That was a mistake. This is the tennis court area back here, school, all that.
Okay, and just because my property happens to be in the front, show me where Clubview is, where Old Canton is.
This is Oak Kent Road here. This is Parkway up here. This is the clubhouse here. This is tennis back here.
You're on the right-hand side of the red.
So I live on the other side.
Over
Is that
here.
Melrose?
Yeah.
Where's Melrose? Is that Melrose right there?
This is Clubview Drive. This is Melrose right here.
Oh, okay.
Then this, right here are the two cul-de-sacs that separate.
Second.
While you're on Melrose, are y'all planning on having that flood into the commercial area? Right now it's a dead end.
This dead end right here,
Yes.
we don't actually have a plan for anything. I mean, I'm not joking. We don't have anybody signed up or promised, pledged, anything on any part of the property. And this is a preliminary plan, say that again, because unless somebody steps up and says, I want to put this right there, I don't have any place to say what we're going to do. The only thing that makes the most sense out of the whole thing is for this to be commercial. Everything else is a guess.
What kind of zoning you have on commercial? C2, C3, C5, what is it?
It is community mixed use. It's not,
No,
it's,
the commercial part, we have the C,
I understand that,
C2, C3.
but the commercial things that are allowed under the community mixed use is the only type of C. Now, if you came up and you bought this piece and you said you wanted to change it to something else, that would be on you. But there's a lot of commercial that could be allowed under the commercial mixed use designation.
Well, you still didn't answer my question.
It's not C1 or C2 or C12.
C3 or what?
It's not any of them.
He wants to know examples of what is permitted.
You can put a grocery store in there. You could put another gas station there if you wanted to. There's one right across the street, but you could. That's not the allowed use.
Well, what-
You have C2.
I don't think liquor stores are allowed. I can't imagine the church being okay with that. Is there? I don't know, I don't keep up with liquor stores, but I think the proximity to a church. Excuse me. If we have questions, just raise your hand. Yes, sir.
The various residential uses that you mentioned, is any of that going to be multifamily?
If the question is any of it going to be apartments, we have no plans for apartments. When we first created this plan here, we put apartment designation here, but that was 4 or 5 months ago. Since that time, we basically decided we don't think apartments fits in this project.
So you're saying that all the residential is going to be single family?
I'm not saying that.
Okay, you say it's not going to be apartments.
Well, there's a lot of other things too. If you go just up Old Canton Road about right to the edge of North Point, there are some really great houses that are zero lot lines.
Yeah.
They got a wall around, stuff like that. That's actually considered multifamily. If you go into a place that's condos, where you own the condo, it's not rented to you, you know, any of that, that's actually considered multifamily as well. But that's not, that takes the transient aspect of apartments out of it. And that's what we're hoping to do.
Basically be owner occupied.
Yes, sir. That's the goal.
How about Publix?
Any other questions?
There will be an option that there might be apartments, with the zoning, there might be apartments, is what you're saying. There could be.
In that zoning designation, it allows apartments. It does.
What section is that?
All of them.
All of it apartments?
It could be.
Well, you don't have that kind of demand. You go back.
No, we don't have that demand. But if you look at this area, where are the apartments?
Right down the street.
The point is, once again, I can't build anything here that I can't sell. And I don't believe this is an area for apartments. I was in a meeting last month with the largest apartment developer in Mississippi. I kind of stepped on my feet a little bit because I told him we didn't plan to put apartments in here. And I didn't know he was the largest apartment developer until he told me. I said, well, he asked me why. I said, because if you look at an apartment complex 10 years later, I haven't seen a one that looks like anything. They all get run down, they all get beat up, and that's not what we planned. Let me tell you the reason for that. I'm purely a sales-driven guy, okay? All of these houses back here, we're expecting the value of those houses to be from $350 up. Now, if I take adjacent to here and put in an unsightly product, whatever, big green warehouse, that's going to harm my ability to sell these. And the income that we would derive from these is so significantly greater than this, I'd be silly to do it. I'm not silly.
Well, if you can get this over.
No, that's the point. I'm not gonna put anything ugly in there. And I happen to not be a fan of apartments. Yes, ma'am?
If that's gonna be luxury homes, are you planning to gate all the way around that? Well,
We are talking, we have planned for that availability if the builders who buy these parts want to put a gate on there. But any of the gates that go into this property would be on our property only. I've heard from people that they're concerned because apparently there's a project here in town that closed off some streets when they gated their own community. I can't do that. That's, the city wouldn't let me do that. If we put the gates on here, look at the way this is designed. Once we get onto our property, we could put a gate. Once we get onto our property, we could put a gate. But there's no gates on any of the roads that you know that are out there today. There would never be any gates out there because the city would never let me do it. Because I'd be closing off access to your own. I don't know how the one that I heard about got it done, but I'm not smart enough to do this. Yes, ma'am.
The schools,
I'm sorry?
the schools that you said that are approaching, have they been public schools or private?
Both?
Both.
Yes, ma'am.
Jackson Public has professed interest already?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Be careful, I'm only going to say what I know I can say. Yes, sir.
So does this group really think there's a demand for this community to put a $350,000 home?
Well, it's not really up to us. We're going to design the community so that it can support those if the builders who buy the property from us think they can sell it.
Well, that's just the whole thing is the demographics of this area don't really support any more houses.
I don't agree with you. I do not agree with you.
Are you from this area?
I'm not.
Okay.
But I can read demographics, and I've done a lot of this, and I can debate the objects of that with you, but I'm not going to take everybody's time. I'm going to just say that when we go to sell the land to builders, they will end up deciding what price the housing has to be for them to sell it. But we're going to design this community to be able to accept 350,000 and up houses if the builder wants to put them in there.
So y'all basically what you're saying here is y'all decided y'all are going to sell to builders. Y'all are already going to sell.
Well, somebody has
to
to build the houses, and we don't build houses. Now, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What we would build, if we were the developer and developing this to sell, we would put in the roads, the water, and the sewer, and we would sell the lots to builders. Because I'm not going to build houses. I don't know how to do that. So what we're going to sell is, we're either going to sell lots because we built them, or we're going to sell plots of this green because that's what they want to buy. Yes, ma'am.
I think that gets us back to what probably is on the mind of most of us. And that is, you can tell us all the good things that you're doing a wonderful job of, but once you sell that, then if I want to buy, see, I've been hit by 235s. Do you know what 235s are?
I do.
Well,
I was working for
I've
architects
done
when I did
that.
it.
Okay, that's that, didn't win. We had a lovely area, lovely house that put in 235s, and in 5 years, we were done, okay? And so, my concern is that when, you know, if you sell off this thing, and I understand, you know, your reasoning, and I'm not opposed to this. See, I think our concern is, so you sell it to me, and I say, you don't like apartments? Well, let me tell you, buddy, I do. You know what I'm saying? And so we're stuck with ticky-tacks that, and I'm not, I lived in an apartment until I got married, okay? So I'm not totally against apartments. But the fact is, just what you said, give them 10 years, and nobody has put a roof on, or put a window in, or painted it, and it's trash. So we have no way of knowing, no matter how sincere and honest you may be, that when you sell that property off, the next person isn't going to put it to us. And you know how we know that? My property is right there on Melrose, okay? Okay? And it backs right up to that driving range. you can't get to my house now without running into this mudslide down here, right? Now, this wasn't your doing, but you know where, when we moved in here, and there are people here that will testify to this, those two houses down there were supposed to be a transition area. That's what they said. That's what the zoning said. And the next thing we knew, the houses are gone, the bulldozers are in, and they're putting in car washes because we need one, because we've only got two about 3 blocks away, and the mudslides is coming down our driveway. And do you think we had any say in that? Did anybody here get a notice of any zoning change on that? No. And that, I think, is where I'm coming from, is that I think you all are probably very sincere, but the people who are going to end up sucking the dirty end of the stick is sitting in this room. Thank you.
Well said.
Well said. Shy and retiring. There you
I
go.
didn't hear any of that that had any relevance to our property, but I get it that somebody did a bad drainage thing to you. None of those people are in this room. But I will tell you this. I will tell you this, and I'm sorry you're fired up about it, because, but I don't blame you.
But you see our point. I mean, you see
The point is that we're not.
I mean, it's not, the thing is do you have a way that we can feel comfortable that this isn't going to happen to us again on a 150-acre scale? See, I think that's what most of us, we realize that the property has to be sold, we realize it has to be developed. And I don't think anybody here is really out to just crucify anybody for trying to touch the thing. At least I'm not. But I've already been crucified a couple of times over, and I'm just a little apprehensive about how we know that once you sell this off, do we get a chance then, if you sell it, say you sell it to this guy who wants to build all these apartment complexes, do we get another chance at zoning to say we don't want apartment complexes?
No, you don't. Let me tell you what does happen. When the people who want to build in the various segments, they have to go back to the zoning department, and they have to go through what's known as site plan review. Site plan review is a special part of the city government that looks at what your site plan is and basically advises you on what will be approved and not approved, because you still have to go get your permits to build whatever it is you want to build. So the site plan review people look at the piece of property you bought and your plans for it, and they can say, well, you need to change this, or you need to change that, or you need to fix that. Do you get another bite at the apple? Not really, but you can petition those people and talk to them about it. But at the end of the day,
Sounds like
There you go.
it's perfect.
I really appreciate it.
So, the city will schedule a meeting on the 28th. What they going to do? I got this letter.
yes, I sent it to you.
So inform the people that's here on the city so they can be there.
We sent it to everybody.
You know, everybody that's here got that letter. Maybe you didn't.
And I'm like, catty corner to the
See the file for rezoning piece of property.
Well, I know,
It is
I
one of
know
the-
the deal, but I know what the process is.
I have to send this out to everybody who lives within a certain distance of our property. And we've done that now twice. So I assume that everybody was here because of those letters.
What's the distance?
No, I'm here because of Facebook.
We actually moved it,
Yeah.
I'll speak to this briefly. We actually moved it, we had originally this meeting scheduled for December the 17th.
Exactly.
And there was quite a bit of feedback that got back to me that said, it's right before the holidays, it's a bad time, what are you trying to run through, can we wait a bit, can we get this after the holidays? And the answer was absolutely. So what we did, correct me if I'm wrong, is we sent them a letter to that effect, explaining
To the
to
same
the same 150 people that we were finding why we were moving it. We then sent an additional letter a week or so ago, that y'all received, that got y'all here today, that said, we want your feedback, please come in. And then from there, we also send out certified letters by law to the same 150 people announcing this public hearing with the city on the 28th.
Correct.
So there is absolutely,
Why am I not getting any of this? Three doors down.
sir, I don't have that answer. I don't-
The list is given to us by the county, by the
Yes, sir.
city.
We're following the way everything gets turned in, I have all the certified receipts. Your name's on the list that's provided to us, but I can't answer that question.
This is 150 certified receipts.
Hello?
No, I can't get it. Thank you.
Stand up.
Hang on one second. She's had her hand up for a while.
I live on the north side of the golf course, on the 9,000 cars a day street, two-lane, crumbling street. And from the drawing, it looks like that entrance street will be pretty close to my driveway.
This is Plum Orchard Road. This is what. Plum Orchard? Carroll. Wrong fruit.
Orchard G.
Oh, this is Atkins Colonial. Yes. I'm saying this road right here.
Excuse me.
Okay, right, sorry.
I live 3 houses from Orchard.
Okay.
So what conversations are y'all having with the city of Jackson about what would happen to that street? It's treated as a thoroughfare, the speed limit is not observed, it's crumbling, it's a neighborhood. It's a very hazardous place to come and go from. I live here because I love it. So what's going to happen to traffic flow? Should this residential area be developed? And again, what conversations are you having with the city about the state of the street that's going to serve as your property and mine? And my house, by the way, is worth maybe a third of what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, let me tell you exactly how. When you provide a plan like this or whatever to the zoning, to the city for consideration, they have a lot of different departments, and all of those departments look at the plans. One of which is the city engineer. His name is Robert Lee. He looks at all the utilities, utility access, and all of that. He looks at the grading, how the drainage is going to work.
Mike, ladies, to answer that, I hate to throw him on the bus, but our engineer is here, and part of this process, just to make sure you guys understand, that's what has to be studied. It has to be studied what the additional amount of traffic would be, would widening the road be a great improvement for you folks, and of course, access into the property. Red lights, traffic, and I'm going to get over my skis here to measure the engineering. I'll let Neil DeForest, by the way, take over and have that conversation. But just as Mike was talking about, he was saying, you don't know what you want to do, you don't know what you want to do here. When we get our, as we call it, highest and best use, what we believe the pieces to be, we then go into feasibility. To get back to your question a minute ago, we don't think there's a demand for $350,000 houses. We don't think there's a demand for a grocery store, as an example. We don't think there's a demand for townhouses. Think about it. We really don't know. Feasibility studies, market analysis, and having the respective field and the folks here in this market will help us determine that. Y'all can be exactly correct. And to let you know, I want to make sure we differentiate. I'm not a general contractor. We don't sling hammers. We don't build, per se, anything. We pay for it. That's it. And when we buy the property, what we attempt to do is get the highest and best use out of the property, which, number one, assists in tax dollars for the city, Ward 1, the county, and hopefully those dollars are funneled back in for infrastructure improvements, school improvements, and all the things you're mentioning here. Roads are challenging, access is challenging. Everything we're attempting to do, and I said this, y'all may or may not have seen some of these comments, was on a win-win scenario to work with the city with the county and with you folks to say, let's do something that makes sense, that increases the value of this property and the property around it. It would be counterproductive for me to want to bring in aspects of this property that would diminish that. And I do understand everyone's points and everyone's concerns. Well, Bo, this sounds great, but you guys sell the property, what's Tom, Dick, or Harry going to do with it from that point? We do have a process, or I should say the city, of going through, as Mike alluded to, the site plan. There will be another day, so to speak, to see what has been looked at and where there is quite a bit that we could do development-wise on this property as it sits today in a special use district. You'd be shocked. It's all public information. You can read it. Go to City of Jackson, go to zoning, look at the difference in a PUD or a mixed use or a traditional neighborhood development. We've got experience in all pieces. And when you come in without in tow, so to speak, a dozen or so groups that already want to build, then you have to look at a piece of property holistically, look what's around it, and see what we believe that would fit and that would make the most sense, and start the process. We don't have one purchase and sales agreement executed today to sell one piece of property. We don't have one single-family contractor that came in and said, Bo, put in 24-foot roads, curved gutters, make it perfect, give us a new great entrance, wide napkins, it needs to be 4-lane, do we have this, do we have that in the access? I don't have that today. And I'm not going to go put in roads and spend millions of dollars in infrastructure back to the point if the demand's not there and no one's going to buy the product. But since I'm not the one swinging the hammer, so to speak, the feasibility is done by that acquisition group. Now, I work with many international tenants that come to me and say, Bo, we need a property in Timbuktu. Actually, Michelin happens to be one of them, a French-based company. Everybody here possibly has driven on a Michelin tire at one point. Same process. We go through and we determine what makes the most sense for that type of commercial development with this type of aspect. And that client looks at it and says, how do I service my customers? Where do we need to be? We start the same process. I get my team members and we go look for site plans, site approval, and what makes the best fit. And we do the same process, whether it be one track or a dozen, and we go through. And everybody gets their feedback. And I will let Neil get right back to the traffic in a minute. Yes, sir.
Question about the development. There's lots of infrastructure that's involved in this, water and sewer and so forth.
Sure.
But we have had a couple of developments done where there was no water retention at all. And we have a tremendous water problem, runoff problem. When we pave over this property, what are you prepared and what are you talking, you know, we're going to talk to the city about this, I'm sure, but what are you prepared? Is there water retention built into this plan?
Until you know exactly what you're going to build, you don't know what you're retaining exactly.
Well,
let
my
engineer get that. Gotcha.
I can tell. Yield for us. And some of the things you may not be able to see, I mean, I've looked at this close up for hours on end, so I know what it is. There's a couple things you may not realize that are on here. One of the items that we have is sort of an amenity. There are some ponds sketched in here. The whole thing isn't full of homes. We've got a large pond here that's sort of between rows of homes in the middle. We've got another central pond that's sort of near the focus point in the middle, the decision-making point. And then we have the, sort of a natural barrier, Purple Creek, a portion of land on the other side that has some ponds on it. So we've looked, you know, high level to make sure, you know, we did this before the property was purchased. Looked to make sure there were ways to detain the property, which ways the sewer going to flow. You know, there's actually three or four different directions that we can take the sewer, so we're not making a heavy impact on one sewer branch, one branch of the water service, or one branch of the drainage structures. Right now, and we'll, you
as development progresses, what we'll do is try to work with what the land gives us. There's actually a pretty good bit of fall elevation change across the land. There's a sort of a ridge that runs from the northwest down toward the clubhouse, sort of meanders through there, sheds each direction. We've done some preliminary detention calculations to figure out how to accomplish this so we're not invasive to the existing system. And these ponds, in addition to a couple of likely that will have small basins around the edges that will also be kind of a buffer zone, landscape areas. That's kind of what we've worked into the plan. I mean, the last thing we want to do is to come in here and have to rework the drainage all the way, to the next major creek. But if that's what we have to do, that's part of the process. We mentioned the streets. The street on the North Atkins or Colonial Circle right here, it is in disrepair. I mean, there needs some attention on that road in a bad way.
That property right
In the curve, right now, yes, there's some high traffic through there, and rates of speed are in excess of what needs to be there. So hopefully, I'm not from here either, but I do live somewhere, and I have a hometown just like everybody does here. And I want to make sure that those kind of things don't get worse, they get better. What I'm hoping is that the attention that this is going to get, there's not going to be any way that the city or some partnership that we have with the city, if there's not some improvements that can be done out here. I mean, there's going to be improvements to the water system and the sewer system that we're going to be connecting to. That's part of the process. Things that get enhanced, impact type deals. But the drainage system we've looked at. We've looked and seen where the current discharges are, and it's really, it doesn't accommodate any development in the future. So we will be building and designing in stormwater detention for the entire site. The commercial aspect will be a lot more attention required for that, obviously, because it's probably going to be a little more paving and rooftops than houses. But that has been looked at, and we've got some preliminary numbers on it.
What happens with that? Neil, I don't know if you caught that. Neil has owned for a very long time, his own civil engineering firm. And what he has to do is look at this on behalf of the team as things evolve. As we get real clients, they really want to buy this part or that part. He then has to evaluate that. We have to make our plans for that, submit that to the city. The city's engineers then evaluate what we think, and they let us know if it's yes, no, maybe. We need to tweak it here, make the ponds bigger there, fix some of the roads over here. Those are all things that happen during the zoning process. Those are all things that happen during the permitting process. So we're not alone out here making the decisions as to what the road's going to look like, what the retention ponds are going to look like. We get to make suggestions, but it's the ultimate decision by the granting authority. In this case, it's the city. Let me just answer this man's question.
I just want to say we appreciate y'all, taking the time for this dialogue and everything. That's more than some developments have done. But it sounded like the consensus, just speaking from my opinion, the consensus of last meeting was the skepticism comes in the ability to have multifamily. And so with the zoning ordinances, that's where this is going to be kind of up in the air. So it seems like we need some way to have more accountability as opposed to community mixed use, although we really don't know what we want to do. If there could be something more like a planned urban development, if it would be more structured, to say, hey, we need all of the development accountable to this plan. I don't know, is that accurate? I think that's where
some of it is
the gray area.
That's the whole breadth of the development industry you covered. So yes, some of it's accurate, some of it is a bit sketchy. But
I just want to say, when the zoning hearing comes up, if there's too many in opposition, then what? I mean, we're all about progress. It's a great opportunity. We just want everybody to, I guess, feel more comfortable about it.
Well, that's why we're here. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes here. There's lots of questions. And the planned unit development is generally tailored to a much more specific end user. If you know exactly where the roads are going to be, exactly what the setbacks are gonna be, what the lot lines are. It's a lot more, and we, quite honestly, we still have.
We're not there yet. Now,
It may get to that. There may be portions of this that later become planned development.
You just have to go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't want it to remain undeveloped. I mean, there's some people that are looking across the street and they're seeing grass grow and they used to be a beautiful golf course.
152 acres of weeds and trees, I'm not too sure that's a good idea either. But one of the things about what you said, one of the things we're going to do, which speaks to what you said, is we're going to take the feedback that we get from tonight, and we're going to think about that. And then Bo is the ultimate decision maker on the property and what we do from here. So the input from this meeting is very valuable so that we can say, okay, look, we have a room full of people, and this is what we had planned to do. This is what the community thinks is good. This is what the community thinks is not so great. And we can amend our plan. Like I told you, there's nothing cast in stone here. We don't have any clients. We don't have any client going, gosh, Mike, I gotta have this. We don't have those people. We're trying to take a zoning condition or a zoning situation that's more malleable so that we can address those clients' needs as they contact us. We haven't done that yet. We're so new in this project, we're not there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
The advantage of being naive, senile old lady is you get to ask stupid questions, okay?
There are no stupid questions.
Oh, well, my thing is again, I'm not opposed to the plan, but now, when you talk about these ponds and all of that, is that something that you all are going to have to be required to do before you sell this stuff? Or is that a good plan, and if the people that buy it think it's a good plan, they'll do it, and if not, again, I have this thing about being shafted, you see?
Well, it sounds like you got
Well, yeah,
but let me answer your question.
we don't want to put our own foot in. You're asking for a lot of unknowns. And for
But I mean, so it isn't really your responsibility.
No, it totally is.
So what I'm really asking is, it really isn't your, you can suggest these ponds, which sound like a great idea to me, I don't know. But you're not going to be ultimately responsible for that. These are your suggestions of what you would like to see happen. But if I buy it and I say I want to put a sand pit there, that's good, we'll have a sand pit.
Not really.
If the city, and if you went through that site plan approval process, and
See,
the
that
city.
gets slipped by us without us even knowing what happened.
That's not the intention. That's not
The site plan part has been a part of the city's zoning requirements forever. What happens is if we sell this, or any piece, the person that buys that piece has to design something. He has to take that to the county, or to the city to get his approval. He has to design the ponds, he has to design the roads, he has to design the utilities, and they approve it or they don't. If they don't have enough drainage in there, the city's going to say, heck no, we're not going to approve it. It's their job to protect your interest in the permitting process. Yes, ma'am.
In multi-use zoning, what is not allowed? Can you tell us exactly what is not allowed?
Well, there's, pardon me first. You can't do certain sin-related businesses. Oh, darn, that's just what you were looking for. I'm sorry. But there are certain things. Oh, don't leave. I don't think I have a job anymore. You might as well let me go on. Man. Well, it's precluded from zoning. There's a lot of things you can't do. But most of them have to do with stuff you don't want in. The city makes the ultimate decision on what they allow. It's all on the website. If you're interested, look up City of Jackson zoning regulations, and it tells you. And it's community mixed use. But most of the things that you cannot do are things like that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, my biggest concern is that I moved into this neighborhood because
it's a mature neighborhood, and I'm a young mature, and I want to be where the brilliant people are. What I don't want to happen is, I don't want people coming in and building stuff and putting businesses in, and then they don't live in the neighborhood. When you do your business deal, I want the business deals to be, okay, if I lived in this neighborhood, what would I want in this neighborhood if I lived in it? And I need to return to the point where it's a community. It was a community when you came in here. We want to keep it as a community when people come and build here.
It is a community in transition in a lot of ways. Our goal is to meet up with that transition and make it as good as it can be. Now, yes, and the gentleman back here questioned my IQ about $350,000 houses. Well, you know, I may be reaching for the stars. I may be wrong. Okay, I get it. But what if I'm not wrong? What if the builders do want to build something like that? What if this is looked at? If you think about the way this place has developed, and no, I'm not from there, but I have read a lot.
I think you should go look at the MLS and look at Carrollwood, the gated community that you've been ripping on. And look at how many houses are for sale in that community.
But, I'm sorry, did I rip on somebody?
$300.
I apologize if I ripped on somebody. I didn't mean that. I don't even know where Carrollwood is. But there's
well, there you go. You hadn't done your study yet. Hit a button.
I'm going to get to you, Mr. Gilbert. I'm definitely going to get to you. Yes, sir.
You've done 2 or 3 other developments, I think, your group. If I wanted to...
I've built projects on 4 continents, sir.
Am I right that you did something, was it in Utah, that is similar? Where did I hear that you've done
Utah?
2 or 3 things similar to this? Am I wrong?
I have done a lot of things similar to this, but I haven't worked in Utah.
But this group has not done anything like this thing.
In Utah?
Well, where I'm going is, if I wanted to look up, if I wanted to Google some other things that you've done, what would I look up?
What would you look? We are private partnerships and we'll be happy to share our project information and give you a project book with that. And projects that we have paid for, projects we have purchased, and so what specifically do you mean?
Similar to this, I would think
Oh, like
purchase.
if we bought a golf course and completely redeveloped the golf course, and what it looked like at completion, is that what you meant?
No, it wouldn't have had to have been a golf course.
Okay.
Just what property have you bought in the last few years as a group that you've developed? If I wanted to look at it on the computer, what would I Google? What would I look up?
I can give you a list of about 30 projects that I personally have done throughout Central Florida in the last 3.5, 4 years. But none of them are all under one name. Every one of them has a special use name. Like this is Colonial Jackson, LLC. Every project has its own name.
Yeah, I want to make sure this is clear. We are not, for example, a private equity firm. We are not a venture capital firm. We're not a bucket firm that says, we come in, we buy this, and here is our development. We are private investors that have a real estate development arm as one of multiple businesses that we're associated with. And we as a group hire professionals, just like Mike Lawrence, like Neil DeForest, and others, that come in and work with us in the city to determine the exact questions you have. What's the highest and best use for the property? We then determine, is it to sell the property to another group? Is it to develop the property in our house? And because our best work would be to put our partnerships, which are all private, and our private capital together, to build facilities, to own, and to lease back, which we would hope to regional, local, national, international tenants of that sort. And that has been my forte. I work with a lot of international companies. When I say a lot, a handful of international companies where we do build to suit for them, as I mentioned earlier. They say, we need a piece of property, and we need this type of facility, and we need it in this market, And here's our criteria. We then, to y'all's point, hire companies to do the feasibility study to determine, is there the demand, does it make sense? And all of those pieces are through that end user, because they're the individuals or the company that will be operating there on a daily basis and paying people like me to use the building. So we don't build it and hope they come. We work with those end users in all these different facets, from assisted living, skilled nursing, commercial, and single family. And as I've mentioned before, I'm not a builder. Builders come to us, we do the homework, they determine how many lots and what the feasibility would be. We put those homework into play, and we work as a capital provider. Developer, I mean, to give a pulse, you could be the
Well,
developer.
then I've
It's
been
capital.
lying for the last about 2 months, because
I'm sorry?
some friends of mine would ask me, oh, you know, what's going on over there? I
Well,
would
this is
say,
the first
oh, we're
meeting
not
we've had.
worried. This is a group, they've done some other things, they've done some great things. But
Well, we'd like
now-
to say we're great things.
Well, I mean, but I want to be able to say, this is something they've done. And I'm understanding that I really can't do that. Well, if
I'm
I
really trying to
can,
understand what you said. I mean, in that aspect,
Do you have a website? Do you have something?
Is
on
there
the
a website?
like our brokerage arm, like for instance, we have our Alliance Commercial Real Estate, which is our brokerage arm, which goes and does our site selection, all the other states. Absolutely.
are they doing it's Alliance
www.acrela.com. Alliance Commercial Real Estate in Louisiana.com. That is our brokerage arm. Sir?
Would you repeat that slogan?
Yes, sir. A-C-R-E, Agri, L-A.com, which is the acronym for Alliance Commercial Real Estate Louisiana. And that will give you some ideas on where our brokerage and site selection arm is. Our Louisiana Fund does early stage venture capital and healthcare. We're based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Our restaurant company that we operate in 4 states, we're in North Carolina, where it was founded in the early 90s, but our office is in Louisiana. All these different developments, we are investors. Yes,
So have you bought a golf course somewhere? You never, this is your first time to buy a golf
Never
course?
bought a golf
Excuse me,
course.
real
Sure.
quick. I think we need to speak to some of Mike's experience in the
Understood.
golf business.
And when we do, and I want to, we want to get back to Colonial Place.
Mike, why don't you give us some more color in terms of some of the golf courses?
We don't want golf courses, or are you talking about
Golf
developers
courses
for golf courses?
and residential lot development.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Mike actually has had the experience, that's why he's here, and not only developing, you may want to.
So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
golf.
I thought I was taking the bullets for you.
I'm here too, sorry. Yeah, nonetheless, Mike, and because not only has he procured and developed golf courses, but also his single-family aspect of the way those two met and wedged together, is why I'm in Tampa, Florida, is in Jackson, Mississippi. It's because I hired Mike because of his experience. It was like, no, I'm happy to, thank you, if I can speak to that experience.
I've been in the golf course business since about 95. We have bought land through different partnerships that I've worked with and for. About 50, I guess, golf course properties that we then provided the architectural work to design the golf course. Owned the company that did that. Owned the company that did the construction that built the golf course. Owned the company that built all the roads around it, that then the builders, who typically hire us to do that, can then build their product, build their homes on those. So every aspect of buying and building and operating a golf course, I can do. Every aspect of residential development, I can do. I've done it a lot of times on 4 continents. So I've done it a lot. So I do know a lot about that. This is the first time, however, that I've bought a piece of land that used to be a golf course. This is not a golf course. It will never be a golf course. You know why? Because if somebody wanted to reopen this golf course, it would cost them an awful lot of money to start over, because you'd have to bring all of the irrigation up to standards. You've got so many things that once a golf course is dead for a period of time, it takes a lot of money to resuscitate it. I've never done it. I've renovated a lot of golf courses. We've taken a lot of golf courses from some of the classic designers and re-put in the bunkers and the strategies and so forth that those designers have put into the golf course to create that same playing experience that they had when H.S. Cole or Mr. Tillinghast or any of those guys designed. We've done that. But to say that I bought a dead piece of land and created something out of it, I haven't done that.
Didn't that add really quickly? My name is Rob Heidman.
He's both partners.
One of the things I'm not sure that's come across exactly is I think we're very much aligned with all of y'all. You know, we want to make this as nice and as successful a development as we can. So we don't want to provide for uses that are going to detract from the value of this property. We want it to be as nice and as valuable as it can possibly be.
Okay.
Are y'all familiar with the property in Lafayette, the ranch?
River Ranch?
River Ranch?
Yeah, Steve Who, yes.
How did that come about? Is
How
it
did
the
it come
same?
out? Steve Who designed it. He also designed Providence that we work with in Shreveport, which is a traditional neighborhood development in both. He did it on the Vermilion River in Lafayette, Louisiana. And from there, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that development. It's fairly fantastic.
Yeah, well, it is.
It's, Steve did a good job. He came and consulted for, in Shreveport for another development we're associated with that our restaurant company is office and operates in. So we're very familiar with Steve and what he's done, and we've got a lot of their input presently on what we're doing here.
Because I can envision on a smaller scale if it were as fine as that.
We really have quite
From your lips to God's ears.
Again, we've got a lot of opportunity, and it's just checking the boxes and getting through and getting a general understanding, because most of the developers / your master planning folks are looking at us and saying, what is it zone? What are you going to do here? The same questions you guys have. And so we've got to get some concurrence between all of us and the city as to what we can do so we can start putting the feasibility and the business plan around it to see if it makes financial sense to do anything. Or do we do nothing? Or do we sell it? Those are questions we just can't answer today. We're just business people attempting to develop this property and hopefully enhance things for all of us. And as talking to the city and the county, it would be very well received. And the potential of tax dollars and improvements for also the infrastructure and everything surrounding. We face a lot of the same issues in Louisiana, I assure you. And we understand exactly. And that's why, again, the transparency is here. And we're having these types of meetings. We can open this up and all meet at the hearing and let the city decide. Then it goes up to city council, and then from there, if there's legal or not legal action, just take it. A fight doesn't make any sense. So we're trying to show our big picture as to what we're looking at and things then to be site plan approved to increase things for all of us. And that's our biggest plan and picture at this point.
I have a question in terms of.
Hang on one second. I just promised this lady she'd put her hand down and call her.
I understand you don't know what you're doing exactly. I don't know. You're not going to know what the exact plan is for the future. What scares me is we're going to the zoning and get it rezoned for commercial, for apartments, for residential, for everything. If you take the mixed use out, I wouldn't be quite so scared.
So are you saying, and no, this is very, very helpful. So you're saying that it may be more beneficial to wait, and as each individual opportunity came through, let those go through on a separate track?
Because you'd have 40 of these kind of meetings that you'd have to go to.
No, that's what I'm looking at. Or as this gentleman had like a PUD type development. We've got associated groups, and quite a few that come in tomorrow and say, oh, we'll buy the duck and we will go do a PUD, because we can sit there for 5 or 6, 10, 15 years and just wait for the right opportunities to come around and fit into this box that we somewhat pigeonhole ourselves in. That absolutely can happen.
But you're opening up, if you change the zoning, that means it doesn't matter, anybody can come in.
Have you looked at the
Well,
comparison?
yeah, that's not exactly correct. I mean, zoning is there, and again, we have to get back. The present zoning of this property is a special use district. Have you guys seen some of the things other than golf courses that you can do on a special use district? Assisted living, seniors housing, things of that nature.
That's right.
But those, exactly, and those can be, so therefore, some of these areas in the mixed use for that, it would make perfect sense either to retain
Why
or
not
have that
zone for
adjusted.
that, though?
Ma'am?
Why not just zone for that and residential,
Well, not
assisted
knowing
living, that
exactly.
kind of thing?
Well, different groups, and again, different criteria and different feasibility, you know, would move things and different say, we would like to see this in this area, you know.
Yeah.
It's about being able to kind of maneuver, because not knowing, again, who the end user is today is very difficult to determine, you know, how you adjust and make those movements. And we want to do it very deliberately and follow it to where everything we do, again, not only enhances the area around it, but back to the points of drainage, retention, traffic, roads.
Have you dealt with Steve Jackson?
Have I dealt with Steve Jackson? But I've dealt with you guys so far.
They don't listen to us either.
The good thing is, things are the same, candidly, wherever you go. Everybody wants to know, I get it. And you know, if the city comes back, and I'm very candidly, and says, you know, Bo, you're gonna have to take each one, as large as it may be, one by one, and that's what's gonna be the best part, and that's what we're gonna do. And if they say, Bo, we want, and we'll give you this mixed use, this flexibility, but there's gonna have to be some deeds or restrictions or covenants or things of that nature. Just to your point, well, I can't sell it to Timbuktu, and they can't come in here and put, which I've heard this word all across Section 8 and apartments and these different types of developments. I've heard some from the public forum as well as personal saying they would love to see a school. And I heard others say it would be a traffic nightmare. No, we don't want it. No, it just brings things down. And others say, well, wait a minute. Have you focused and studied charter school? Have you looked at the private format? Are you sure, you know, are we talking apples or? And when you really start peeling the onion a bit, what makes sense to some doesn't always make sense to others. That's why there's a group setting like this, and that's why everybody gets their say, and it's what's the best of all. I mean, it's a group, and so it's not individual. For me, if they say, "Bo, this doesn't make sense for our area," we're not going to do it. They won't. So you know, it's just. I mean, I hate to be so.
It's just a budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A little bit of a, maybe a devil's advocate. Take all of us out of the picture, because you said you knocked out the city of Jackson.
That's correct.
You got 152 acres here.
Yes, sir.
What are you going to go into the city of Jackson and say, this is what I'm going to do with that 152 acres?
What I'm going into the city of Jackson,
You really put it that way, because I think that, and Mike will want to address this,
Oh,
I think
sorry.
that there's a miscommunication there. We've spent a lot of time communicating with the city of Jackson. So,
well, they said about dealt with the city.
yeah, in terms of having done another project before.
I haven't done a project with the city.
But we've spent the last several months.
Actually, a year and a half.
When you gentlemen as investors,
Mike, you might want to address that.
when you gentlemen as investors decided to buy these 152 acres, you had something in mind.
That's right.
All we want to know is, what is that? What is that something you have in mind?
Commercial and residential.
Commercial and residential?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Actually, what we have in mind is right here. Showing
Commercial and
where we have
residential.
it for commercial.
Like going back to that other lady's point, with the uneducated, of which I'm a proud card carrying member. What the hell's a 235 that scared her or whatever she said?
So 235 was a program designed by the FHA in the mid-60s and stopped in the early to mid-70s, and it was a program that the FHA would underwrite houses between 1,000 and 1,100 square feet total, not including the carport. Typically, they didn't have a garage. In the architectural firm that I worked for, when I was in the 3rd grade, they did a lot of the 235 program deals like that, and they were basically a way to get smaller houses into an area. She was concerned because they apparently did it around the house that she owned. I would be upset too. But I will tell you that since the mid-60s, all of the oversight from all of the various entities you deal with has changed. One thing about your flood comment. If I knew what was going to go in this piece of property right there, if I knew what was going to be, if like Bo said in the commercial section, you go in with a client in tow, you know what he wants, you know what kind of building he wants, you know what kind of parking he wants, he knows everything he wants to know about. In a deal like this, we don't know. It's too early in the process. If we knew that, we could flood this thing and say, this is what we want. In a planned unit development application, you talk about the side setbacks, you talk about the rear setbacks, you talk about the FAR requirements, which is floor area ratio, which means how big the total concrete percentage can be of the total lot. You have to know all of those things, and when you file with the PUD, you've got very strict rules, and it cannot change. So, with us not knowing what's going to go with any individual plot, we can't use a PUD unless we go to a specific place after we have a plan, which we don't have. So that's why you asked about PUD. That's why that doesn't work unless you go into a deal with the client. I didn't get back to you, I'm sorry.
Two-part question. One, with this process being what it is, you're looking at yourself as being partners with developers because you're talking about developing the area and selling off pieces of it to various other entities. Is that correct?
Well, the ultimate deal would be if you wanted to buy the whole thing. But barring that, yeah, I think that's what we're left with.
Okay, then the second part of it is, because I appreciate this forum, when I read about the planning commission, at the end of the day, neighbors correct me if I'm wrong, we want to make sure that our concerns go up the ladder along with your proposal. Is that correct? That's correct.
Yeah.
We know there's a limited amount of time in that hearing on the 28th. Is it conducive, and I'm speaking now more to the neighbors, I think, is it conducive for us to put in writing, because these things do need to be formal, if I understood that letter, what our concern, in other words, we're open to it with, except for those exceptions that you mentioned, Bo. We're good with it, except for A, B, C, D. And that literally be a part of the record. Because we're not going to have an opportunity to do this at the planning meeting.
No,
it's 15 minutes pro and con.
I don't even know that it's 15. There's a rule, I don't know what it is.
It's 15
But you
minutes.
do have a presentation.
Residents do have the right to speak, but you do have to sign in at the beginning of the zoning.
But I'm just saying to keep it from becoming redundant.
It would help
because
if
I
you
know.
would tell me what those things you want, you don't want. I mean,
Go back to the point, I get it.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I respect the fact that you are a businessman, and eventually this has to sell to somebody.
Absolutely. And I would be happy to share your thoughts, positives, negatives, what you like, what you don't like, directly with the city, directly with Ms. Aingbrook, and say this is exactly. I'll read it from the list. Be happy to at the hearing. So
Not to minimize what you all are saying, but I feel as though once this goes past the planning board, because we do know about the city of Jackson, and planning something with the city of Jackson, putting something into fruition with the city of Jackson, I know this from personal business experience, is two different things. Whatever it is you agree to or whatever you want needs to be in writing, it needs to be a part of the record, not a conversation, it needs to be on paper. So that it can be referred back to, God help us, we've had two mayors drop dead from heart attacks.
I'm beginning to believe it.
And there's just because you all seem very upfront.
Try to be, I
And,
say, no reason not to directly. to
But we
say-
also know as this becomes, as these parcels begin to sell off, this is less about our relationship with you and more about their relationship with us.
I could not be more in concurrence with, and I'm a full believer in put it in writing, and Ms. Ainsworth, Mr. Gordon, everyone needs to see what you don't, or what you're objecting from, so they can come, you know, that helps me. To go in and say,
Would we have an
here's what
opportunity
works.
to see that list before the hearing?
Pardon me?
Would we have an opportunity to see what that checklist may be before the hearing?
I think you're offering to say that you're willing to take the list.
I'm willing to take what you provide.
What, the list that we provide, okay. I'm just saying, one second. Well, then that's.
Well, I'm nominating her to make a list. I'm so sorry I heard.
Well, and you know, and again, I'm with you, and if there's particular challenges, I'd really like to know now, that's why we're here. We're here to make this as smooth and as open-ended and as positive for all of us as we can. So if there's particular areas that are just, as I call it, deal killers, or this is not going to work because of what you can do, can we have a conversation, to your point, that puts something in writing that says, if we sold this property, and to use your words, would they build apartments? But we wouldn't want Section 8 or something along those lines, you know, again, I need to know when
Just as an example, when the construction trucks get through with Atkins,
Yes, ma'am.
repaving that is not even going to be an option. However, if we don't stipulate that up front, and every time there's a new development on this property, it's going to tear that road up again. Am I correct? So not just about the city being willing to fix it once, as many times as it takes until this is completed.
I would absolutely say that that needs to be in writing to the city. I think you're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to express myself. I've lived in Jackson, Mississippi just about all my life, and that's been a long time. I've just met you guys tonight. Presently, I think I have more faith in y'all than I do in the city of Jackson.
Well, I appreciate that. I do.
Guys, look, I can't, the one thing, and I forgot, I'm sorry, just 1 second, sir. I forgot who said it a minute ago, they said, it's not about what you do, but it's about what the next guy or gal or group does. We can mutually protect ourselves. And I'm comfortable in getting that feedback from you guys and delivering that to the city and saying, we want to do that, but we don't want something that doesn't work or increase values. If it doesn't work for all of us, over time, I agree with you. It's a negligible for both. Or, as you said, it comes back to what it said, no, it's got to be predetermined, pre-designed, and from soup to nuts done. Well, then I may have to go get a private equity firm or another group that can take that and it has hundreds of millions of dollars and says, we can wait there until that particular deal comes up. I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. So
I think you get more.
that's where the flexibility comes in, where I can't be a developer or say, I'm going to do this that way, and I have to take it as they come.
So, I definitely, at least personally, don't want to do anything that's going to hamstring, development. And I understand the need for flexibility here. I guess my concern is, sort of jokingly, you mentioned that if we had to, zone all of this separately, we would have to have 40 separate meetings. But there's sort of a part of me that wants this to not be the last meeting, and I think it would be good at least if there was some assurance that the community could continue to be involved if you get the zoning when you are thinking about selling a piece of it. If we could at least be in the room. Not necessarily.
That's almost saying, that to some degree, hey, we want to we bought the property and get down to its core. And if we're looking to, I have no challenge with folks coming in and saying, we want to know what's going to happen here. And you're right. I can't control the future. I can't tell you who's gonna do what, when or there. I can just say that I can open up the books for everyone's participation. And really, a lot of the questions and concerns you have about approval are really, in my opinion, city and county questions. We're going through the process and following the legal process as it's dictated. So we're not trying to go around, through, or any others, and we're going for a zoning clarification and classification that's offered by the city.
Well, Mr. Gilchrist wants to speak to everybody else.
Okay.
Home values. As I see it, if you put something on the commercial 7 acres there, it's going to make my home on Parkway not as valuable. I don't care what you put in there, because less family-oriented people are going to want to move in that neighborhood across the street from a grocery store or whatever's in there. They're not going to like it. You folks came to us, everybody on Parkway in October, and they came to me and said, we'd like to buy all houses on Parkway. And to me, that showed you understood too that was going to take out, we would be the ones fighting this zoning had you not bought our homes.
That's not why we did it at all.
Well,
The reason that we did it,
Who offered to buy your home?
the reason that we did,
Charlotte Smith Realty came to everybody on Parkway and offered to buy our homes. I've never seen an offer.
I'm not aware.
And they came from you.
they came from me.
Whoever hired them. And I've never seen an offer. I think they were just trying to use that and get us to help y'all get the zoning, thinking you'd buy our property.
No, sir, that's
But
not.
I still feel that the zoning on the commercial piece will hurt everything in our several blocks around there.
The reason that we did it.
Families won't want to come in there, and they'll be afraid of what you're going to, without being very specific about what you're going to put in there. You're asking for a broad zoning that's going to, good Lord, you'll be able to do anything. You'll be able to put apartments or anything if you want to, if you change your mind. So I'm definitely against it. If you can make that thing work by having it all residential, it'd be great. I'd like to look out my window and see another home like mine there.
From your house?
Yeah, from anybody's house on the golf course.
There is no golf course, but let me tell you
on the
exactly why
driveway.
I had them come and talk. In the conversations that I was having with the city at that time, they were talking to me about traffic studies. Part of the same thing you do when you study drainage, same thing you do with all that. You talk to the city engineer, and he wants you to conduct a traffic study. And the traffic study tells him, based on their input, how many cars are going to be on a given road if you do this to that. And whatever it is that you're doing, they evaluate and tell you. And this is what the road has to look like to handle that much traffic. At the time that I had him look into that, they were talking to me about widening this road. We're not to the point of having done a traffic study. We're not to the point of knowing how wide they want it to be. But it came to me that they're going to have to widen that road. They're going to have more land. Now there's an amount of an easement down through there. We don't know the amount of it yet. A typical road needs a 50-foot easement to put a road in. The road's 22 feet. Utilities on either side, standard road. If they're talking to me about widening it, is it going to be a 3-lane road? Is it going to be a 4-lane road? We just don't know. Neither do they. But it came to me that if I came to you and said I was going to, in eminent domain, take some part of your yard, nobody would like that. Now, the way it's worked out, they're not talking to me about that. But back at that time, that was on the table. And I wanted to dispel the opportunity to make people mad. So I took the deal of sending people around to find out what it would cost us if the city paid us to make this easier for everybody. Now, the fact that we haven't done anything is because the city hadn't told us what's going on here. We don't know that that's an issue, and we, frankly, have enough land on our side of the street to double wide the road from what it is right now without ever talking to you about that. But we didn't know that then. So The only real person who's invested a lot of time and effort in that is the gentleman that I asked to get that information for. He's invested a lot of time, hadn't made a penny. Hadn't hurt you, hadn't hurt me. But that's why I sent him and asked him to do this for me. Is so that I would know, oh wait, if the city came to me and said, Mike, you gotta widen the road, this house gotta be. I didn't know that.
Well, Mike, can you tell me that the homes across the street from a proposed shopping center will be worth as much or more after it's finished than they are now?
I can tell you that I've never been a developer property, ever, that lowered the property values across the street from anything I've done.
Well,
I'll tell you another.
first one.
I don't agree with it, but I'll tell you something. I know you don't like it, but I'm sorry. But if you look at the property around Highland Village, they've built a lot of nice communities around Highland Village, and they seem to be doing well. And the whole community there right next to it is $350,000 houses.
We're talking about a different world than how it is.
Maybe.
It's a little different here, because you got 7 houses that face the driving range, and now these commercials, they're gonna face
It's actually not.
Current Parkway, or are you gonna put another street in and let it back up the Parkway? Is Parkway gonna become a commercial street?
I just don't know. I don't know that yet.
The rest of us up here is great. That's fantastic. No problem whatsoever.
Okay.
I live right here. You fix to make this your main entrance. What's gonna happen to me? So you go here 4 lanes. So you put a parking lot over here across.
4 lanes is the answer.
Okay, 3 lanes, 2 lanes.
Whatever.
But you're gonna put a parking lot over here, and these folks gonna all coming out in our street right here. Plus, all these people here are gonna come out right here, out to the highway. That's not gonna be used up here very little. Unless you rebuild this street. They're gonna come right out here, right down to 55. You got a great plan here. Put your gate on that thing, make it a private community, you got a great thing. But this right here kills it. Now, if you wanna leave a 110-foot commercial strip right across here, front of these, then put what you want to another commercial, that's fine. But give us a 110-foot buffer zone, deal commercial, or residential.
What is 110 inch?
You can come back, then you.
You're not like 100 feet?
No, 110 feet deep, you come in, you can put your 8 lots in there, they face out here, they back up to commercial.
Oh, I see.
You have R1.
That's why you came to 100.
Yeah, have R1 facing Parkway, and get your traffic off Parkway, put your traffic back over here. But Parkway is a killer, that's a killer, right, that point right there, you see, right out here by this little sign, and when all these people come through here, that's a killer.
I don't know what they're gonna want us to do, we'll have to find out. But they are talking to me about making this.
Well, you gotta have 2 entries, I think, 3.
Well, I've got way more than that right now, without putting that in. I've got all this as their 4.
Yeah, you gotta put
I've got all this. No, there won't be any cross there. But you've got all this access right here.
Here's your problem, right here. That's your problem.
I get it.
The rest of that is great. What are we gonna do right here?
Yes, sir.
I say
appreciate you.
ditto for
That was good, Mike.
Sir,
Really quick, this
I say
gentleman
ditto
over
for
here
the
says-
100 block of Colonial Circle too. It's the same scenario as Parkway. I think we'll
Where is
get-
that? Right here.
Right, the next street over.
Next street over. Maryland.
We will be unintended consequences at best, probably the backside of a commercial development.
You're talking about
We
this
probably-
part of this street?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, I frankly never owned a street, I didn't think that was an issue.
Because I just already, I'm not sure why I didn't receive registered letter, because I come to the
Yeah. They seem to be addressed.
I understand.
Oh, okay, yes, sir.
Like I was a developer for about 35 years.
What about a project?
Well, meetings like this are one of the reasons I'm not doing it anymore. I have empathy and sympathy for you and Bo and the rest of the team. What I found, in doing developments, and I've done a lot in Jackson, a lot in Florida, Panhandle, Central Florida. Being from out of state and out of city, basically nobody trusts us. You can't trust us. You don't trust us either, so that's okay. A lot of things happened. Down the corner of Old Canton Road and Ridgewood Road several years ago, a piece of property down there, my former partner and I were going to buy it. Went in to buy it, and the Piper brothers from Memphis swooped down here and got it. Well, they came in with a better dog and pony show than y'all got. They had models and all. They had all these great apartments they were going to put in and all. They ended up putting in barracks that Camp Pendleton wouldn't have. They were terrible. We were bamboozled because we had no recourse. We had nothing. You can write all the letters you want to. We can shake hands. We can drink whiskey. We can do everything. But unless it's in covenants or a PUD, everything's pretty flexible. And what you're asking us here tonight to do, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not calling y'all anything but fine guys. You really are. You have a great presentation. You've got a good team here. Sounds like you guys have thought about some stuff. Except, you want us to take all the responsibility and the risk, and y'all not to take the whole lot. And I'm not talking about financial. I'm saying everything you've said tonight has been, you really don't know.
Correct.
You don't have any idea. Why don't you sit down, figure out, do your studies, do your impact studies, do the things that you need to, your demographics, see what's happening, do your economic projections, because, 2015, as we all know, doesn't look real great. And then come back with something that's more concrete, something that we can feel confident in. Right now, if you go in with the zoning that you have, you can build apartments all over. You know it, I know it. You can have an economic downturn, you can sell it to another group, they can pop apartments up. We don't have any assurance that what you guys say you're going to do. I'm not saying that you don't have all the good intentions in the world. You do. I think you're honorable and just men. But situations change. We all know that. I don't want y'all to be another Piper brother, but y'all don't have as good a dog and pony show, though. The whole thing is, it all boils down to trust on both sides and to what we can do. If you don't have covenants, PUD is going to be the best way to go. I know that you say it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. No, it doesn't. But it gives us a lot of assurance that we know what's going to go there or not.
Is the only issue that everybody's concerned about apartments?
No.
Pretty much.
Let me finish, ma'am. School is an issue. School is an issue. We had Jonathan Larkin here last time. I know y'all weren't here.
That wasn't our meeting. That was supposed to be a political
telling
meeting.
you what
I don't know where the hell that came from, really.
Well, let me tell you about that. Jonathan Larkin is on the school board, just got off of it. He said, quite frankly, there are it's declining enrollment in JPS. They have excess classrooms. It'll cost $20 to $27 million to build a school here. Probably don't have the acreage anyway. He said, ain't gonna happen in JPS. So,
That was the same thing I heard.
And at schools, it further restricts what you can do on your commercial too. You're seeing things and all. You've got your church over there, you have your school. So, you'll further restrict that. But I think the whole thing, if you guys could put off the zoning, come back with something more solid that we can feel comfortable with, I think you'd have a lot of support here. Right now, you're telling us this is what we want, y'all just take it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll do something else, but we don't really know what we're going to do. That doesn't make me feel good, and I'm not sure everybody, I can't speak for anyone else, but it doesn't make me feel real good.
So if I understand what you just said, you're concerned about schools and you're concerned about apartments.
No, I'm concerned about the whole development. Because of the flexibility that you leave in
Well, hang on,
special
if
needs.
you're concerned about the whole development, you can see that 90% of this is single-family residential.
What size? Are you going to put 1,100 square foot or 3,000 square foot?
This is
You gotta have
drawn,
covenants.
this is
You have to
drawn,
have covenants, you have to have something.
this is drawn with 60 and 80-foot lots.
I'm saying.
Okay? You're not gonna put a 1,100 square foot house on a 60-foot lot that you buy from me, because you can't afford it. You just can't do it.
Well,
So, I mean,
give us some
it
covenants.
doesn't make economic sense.
Give us some covenants, give us something that we.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. What I'm trying to get to is the root of the issue. Is the root of the issue apartments and a school?
But we have a show, just a show of hands, just.
Is that what the problem is? Is it apartments?
Well, who objects?
So you're telling me that your main problem is apartments?
There's a big difference between Highland Village and Dollar General.
Thank you.
There's a big difference. And both of those are commercial. And Starbucks, we got enough friends already.
I agree with the gentleman from the school board because the school board has told me the same thing. There is no need, there's no money. So without those two things, I don't think a school happens. I'm nervous about a school for a whole lot of other reasons than you are. First off, I don't like dealing with that much bureaucracy in my life. I don't have enough days. But if those are the two issues, let's deal with them and get it behind us.
No, that's not the two issues. Size of housing is another issue.
What is that?
Size of housing, the square footage, not the amount of money, square footage, the minimum square footage of housing.
What should that be?
2,000.
Now, wait a minute. There was a gentleman here who was concerned about how much we think the house is going to be supported for. He's concerned that I've got my sight set too high. You're concerned that I've got my sight set too low.
Well, no, I'm saying in the future, it could go to that point. If the economic downturn comes, for whatever reason, y'all sell it to someone and they don't have the magnanimity that y'all have, and they can come in and say, well, you know, we can build 1,200 square foot homes here. We got to get some money. We got to make it rock and roll. We can do it. I've seen it done a lot.
There are
Unless you have
caveats.
some assurance illegally, then it can happen.
There are caveats in the zoning where you can place those sort of restrictions.
And who does that? You don't know.
Neither one of us. The city is the only one with the legal authority to do anything. So
But
we can have a request, you can like it or not like it, but the fact is that neither one of us can do anything. It's the city that has to do it.
Are you guys seeking any tax credits, new market tax credits, anything, low income tax credits? New market tax credits.
They may be great, we're not seeking them with that. We've not sought anything other than cooperation from the city on zoning and permitting when we get to the point of actually creating something on this property, which is a long time from now. At this point. Yes, sir.
I live on Old Kent Road right out here, and I can say this, I know that you all have state, city codes you have to go by. And you can't do anything outside of that. I can't see that this would not be an advantage for everybody that's living here. If this place stays here and it grows up in grass and nothing's built on it, the city gets nothing. There's no income coming from it.
Correct.
What direction we're going in? Now, I'm for what's right. I'm not for low income. And we got enough bad anyway. And but I don't think that would happen in this environment.
I would agree with you. I don't think it will, but no one can guarantee that.
I think personally myself, these people has got codes they got to go by. They can't just put it out in the air to say this is what we're going to do. They got city, state code they have to go by. Now, they could really do that without us.
No, they can't.
I understand this, because they could take it, they could go to the Supreme Court.
After tonight, they may leave here and just sell the whole damn thing.
Show me your wallet.
Yeah.
How much?
I would like to make a general comment, because when I was a candidate and calling you guys, you always took my phone calls and had long conversations. And I do construction law, I've been around long enough to know, there's nobody requiring them to come stick a bunch of money in the middle of our community. And so when we get these opportunities in Jackson, I'm thankful for it. I do want to say that publicly. I'm thankful for y'all not just doing that, but coming and listening and putting this together for the community. Because I did through that process develop trust with y'all. And I do believe that y'all understand that what's good for this what's good for y'all financially is also good for the community here, and vice versa. So, just thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, it's, again, and I'm gonna close
And,
up.
and we do have our city councilman, Ashby Foote is here, so he's here.
Where?
Right here.
So he's here listening to these concerns, so everybody that's worried about the city, the
Well,
city's
and
here.
that's a good point, because that's actually, as we were saying, the city, your local community civic leader, that's the best place to start. And we're gonna work together on this. And we're going to make it work. And to your point, on covenants, restrictions, things of that nature, I will assure you of one thing. It's in my mind, and the notes are down. And we will absolutely follow protocol to a T. And if there's any chance that we can win off of that and have some more specifics when people come in and buy and have those deed restrictions, excuse me, and some of that protection, I'm open for it. I don't want to have anything that comes through and puts my name, rank, or serial number under any challenge. Because again, what we do here and what we've done elsewhere, I'll be private, follows. And you know, I don't want the nice lady to get stuck with somebody else buys it and then, I mean, we all have horror stories. I live in a house, I live in a market, I've got neighbors, kids in school, and we're not different. So I do understand, excuse my throat, man, we are empathetic, and we want to work with everybody, and that's why we're doing this. So I appreciate you pointing out. Yes, sir.
You just now made a very diplomatic, very political, and very appropriate speech to us without making a commitment to us. You basically said all of these things, you've written them down, and you follow protocol, and you're open to it. But you didn't make a commitment to this community. You did not make a commitment to say, we will put these covenants in there. We will make this section of the development residential. We will retain it as residential.
That's a valid point. But
And
actually, this
can you make that commitment to us
I
so
cannot,
that we can support
I
you
cannot,
at the city?
today I cannot for this reason. Because there's been people that have focused here and made comments today, just to your point, that have said a school, as an example, makes no sense. It won't
I was the person that said it. I was the man on the school board.
And I'm the one that disagrees with you
That's
firmly.
my point is, there's two sides to every story, and you got two guys right here, I bet you're probably both great guys, and you agree to disagree, completely. There you have it. And there's people that are going to disagree. So if we're open and we communicate, and you'll know what we're doing, that is the best guarantee I can give you today, is that you're going to see, know, and be able to read what we have. And for me to pigeonhole and say, I'm only going to sell this to that or only do that, I mean, if that's truly the trajectory, well then no owner would buy any dirt anywhere. I mean, if they couldn't follow the rules and the laws to go do developments, I mean, nothing would be here. And so it's a tough thing to really get down to brass tacks and what will be data restricted when we haven't even had the city and the officials give us any feedback from their perspective. And so I want everybody to be, again, open and go through it. And if there's things you don't like, this is your day, and your day will be at the hearing. And let's have those conversations, and they'll agree or they'll disagree, and they'll say, we'll approve this, and that's when we'll have that conversation as to what pieces on what approvals need to be in writing.
I just want to say one thing as a caveat to that.
Yeah.
If we had come here with covenants, with a definite plan, there's a pretty good chance that not everybody would be happy with it. So this was a way that we could get the ideas, help build some of that plan. I mean, there's no other way to do it without everyone coming together. We need to know what the concerns are with the school, with the apartments. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we need to know if we can take the next step and start incorporating that into some constraints for the development.
But then aren't y'all jumping the gun a little bit on this zoning hearing? Why don't you come back to us with some covenants, with some ideas, with some specifics, before we jump in here and come what name the zoning board? I mean, I've been to that. They're not pretty, they're not fun. They're not as much fun as this meeting. From y'all's standpoint. I know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be tough, you guys. It would be much better if y'all had some specifics, as Jonathan said, some assurances, something that y'all can tell us, that, yeah, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna propose to the zoning board, these are the covenants. You know, there's a couple of pretty smart people in here, probably everyone sitting here, they might have a few good ideas. We live here, this is where we live, this is what we protect. You protect Florida, you protect Shreveport, or wherever you're from.
Well, I'll protect this dude because I bought it.
Well, I understand, but you don't live here. You don't live here. I've been on both sides of your side, folks. I know what you mean.
Hey, Mike,
It would do better if you would do that, though. It would be much better if you could do that.
I'm taking everything into consideration for our good here.
Oh, I know you are.
Truly, I have to get the hearing, and again, as they said, we just let it go through the legal process. And let it go. That's not what I'm here to do. But I know what I can and can't do, I'll assure you. And so it's from there, it's making sure that everyone's informed on what the plan is, and as we adjust, that we continue to inform and get the highest and best use. And whether that be some agreeing or disagreeing on what it should be.
Well, I'll give you a tip on the highest and best use.
Yes, sir.
When they had this, my partner and I tried to buy it years ago, the old guy wouldn't sell. The highest and best use for the Colonial Country Club at that time was a cemetery. You make a lot of money with a cemetery. City doesn't get any taxes, but you make a lot of money. Yeah, you do the math.
So, again, highest and best, that would be a pretty tough,
right.
We're talking about burning across the street. Plots would probably not make, although it's a necessary evil, it would probably have to be positioned a little differently.
Yeah, city doesn't have to know that. Make good neighbors, though.
Why? And again, I'm going to take your question, and we're going to have to wrap. I apologize.
I really want to make a comment.
Sir?
I want you to know I'm grateful that y'all took the time to do a presentation like this, because it's rare that you get an opportunity to speak. Something I think that it would make people feel comfortable here is if there was continued communication. I think someone spoke about meeting more. I don't know if that's feasible, but we all have communication links through neighborhood associations. If we can get that information together, would y'all be willing to continue to communicate through the process of some ideas or some things as they come along? But I can tell you want to work with the community and you want to be able to express ideas. Look, I think I make a lot of different decisions from 2007 to 2009 in the real estate business too. So you can't guarantee what's going to happen 2 years from now or 5 years from now. But if you give us some guidance and keep people in the loop in communication, I'm married to 4 kids, I've realized communication is really important. If we can keep that going, I think people will be more comfortable with what's going on and what you're trying to accomplish. Okay? Appreciate it. But thank y'all for taking the time to speak to us.
If we give them this zoning, it's all over, but without, like this fellow said, without them giving us some specifics, then it's all over but the shouting. You're just giving them all your trust. And I know they're nice fellows, but I hate to give anybody the trust when it comes to my homes and my family.
I respect it. I understand what you're saying.
How many shotgun shacks would you have to build on this road?
More than will fit. I appreciate it. I don't want to get off. You know, let's, excuse the pun. Let's, this will be continued. This isn't the last straw. And this isn't a bona fide done. We'll never see it. We'll be in communication.